Yeah,
This
the
conference
flights.
will now be recorded.
All right, so this is Kevin Kiefer of the Open OCP, who started the server call. Yeah, some folks are having some trouble in flights and stuff today. So, Brian, would you like me to make you presenter first?
Sure, I can go through the DCMHS update. Can you guys see what I'm sharing?
It is coming through for me.
Yep.
Okay, so hi, this is Brian Aspens. I'm with the DCMHS team. So I wanted to John asked me to give a quick 5-minute update on what's been going on with DCMHS. This set of slides was from our 30-minute call last week. So if you want to get the full presentation, the recording and slides are posted on the DCMHS wiki. Just as a reminder, we have a wiki. It's under the server project, and you can subscribe and attend our calls. We went through these topics, which was around NVIDIA signing the DCMHS CLA, a new FLW specification that we just released. What are some of the new things that we're working on at the moment? A new specification that we're in the process of releasing for CRPS, a shared infrastructure spec update, and then a preview to what we plan to do at Global Summit. So just quickly go through these slides. I won't go in details, but the biggest announcement was, we've added NVIDIA to the DCMHS team. So we welcome them. Another important announcement is that for those of you that do follow the FLW, which is full width specification, we do have a version 1.01 that we have available on our wiki. Most of the 1.01 was just around some clarifications that were missing from the 1.0, so there was no major updates in that spec. We are working on a similar update for our MDNO. This is density optimized spec. It will look very similar to the FLW and have the same kind of cleanup that we did. One important thing is that we'll be incorporating one of our erratas in the 1.01, and we're hoping to have this MDNO posted within the next month. And then we are working on some additional form factor specifications. We haven't yet decided if they will go into the DINO specification or if they'll be independent specification. But this is kind of our general timeline and horizon. So by Global Summit, we want to have something around the 0.7, 0.8 quality available to the community. And so our next major milestone is having a 0.5 revision available sometime around the end of July. And then with the targeted 1.0 release around the end of the year. So today you can go download this specification. It's at a 0.3 level. It's called the type 5 through 7 directional specification. Just an update on some MCAD. So this is our Creo for some of these. There was a typo in a type 7 that's available on the wiki. The CRPS specification, we're working on a similar 1.01, which will have some additional modifications and feature adds that were missing. There were some table updates and some updates to some of the voltage ranges and PM bus commands. So look, this one is not yet available, and we're just reviewing the final version this week. I think the target is 1 week from now, we would have this up on our wiki for the external community. And similar with our shared infrastructure spec, we've had a 0.3 version available for quite a while now. We do hope to have a 0.5 version of this specification on the wiki around late July, early August. And again, shared infrastructure is looking at taking a bunch of compute blades and sharing them in an enclosure similar to this pictorial here. So that 0.3 is available now if anyone hasn't seen it and want to preview what that looks like. And then finally, we do expect to have several sessions at global summits. So we would encourage you to attend. And also, if there's something that you would like us to present that's not currently in this list, we'd like to get that feedback so we can make sure we incorporate it into the presentations. But as you can see here, the team does have some 10 exciting presentations that we're targeting. I don't know if all of these abstracts will get approved, but this is what we submitted for the team to review. So if you do want, if there is something you would like to hear about, just shoot Sean and I an email and say, hey, can you guys incorporate this into your Global Summit tracks? And then finally, we are working on a common circuits design spec. We do need to change our name because type 1 refers to a very specific form factor. This is not necessarily our FLW form factor, but what this is this spec would be doing is sort of telling you how to take a base specification and it provides the next level of details for a design. So it's a design spec for DCMHS, looking to have something available at the end of the year, early 24. I went really fast through these. Any questions?
Brian, has anybody signed up to building that reference design that you mentioned for EBSA?
Currently, there are a lot of people building these designs. We will have some available at Global Summit from ODMs. I can think of a minimum of two, probably more. I think some of the challenges are around the CPU embargo timeframes, right? So some of these are pre-release products.
Very good. So at least mechanical structures will be there.
You should see one complete system from an ODM at Global Summit. So we do encourage you to come and view that. Hey, John, I think you're on mute if you're talking.
All right, sorry about that. Yeah, I just want to apologize for everything for not getting the call started on time. I had a conflict I knew about and I was going to leave and I got sucked into the other meeting and lost track of time and didn't even realize it was after 10 o'clock. So thanks to CMAC or Rob or whoever opened the meeting and got it started.
And all the thanks goes to Kevin for jumping in. John, no problem with happens to all of us. Totally
Yeah,
get
no
it.
problem.
And John,
Go ahead.
and John, I just ran through the DCMHS update. We went out of order.
Okay. So you were the first one to go through it?
I was the first one since I was
Okay.
ready. So just
Right. Well, I know
skip
there's
back to your original order.
Right. Well, we expected a light turnout today because there are some other industry conflicts and other OCP conflicts. I think CMAC wasn't even supposed to be here because he was going to be at his conflict. So thanks for
Yeah,
showing up.
but my flight got canceled, so I used
Well,
the opportunity to dial in. The Composable Memory System Tech Summit is going to start in about 35 minutes. that's in Sunnyvale area. So a lot of people have signed up to go.
Right. Okay. Oh, well, let's see if we can. Luckily, we didn't have too much on the agenda today. There was one presentation. I wasn't sure whether it was happening or not. Other than that, we are mainly just um, sub projects. So I see Bappy, you're on. If you want to give your ODSA update.
Sure. Thank you. We have a pretty muted update. So I didn't prepare a slide. So we're going to continue to make reasonable progress. We've had a substrate vendor join our open package effort. So that's really good news. One of the leading substrate vendors from Austria. And we haven't had any group release new specifications. Everybody's sort of working towards the next release. The combined effort with JEDEC is in flight. We're releasing a spec which should hopefully be a global standard sometime in the fall. We issued like an actual formal call for papers for the global summit for chiplets, and we had a fairly good turnout. I think we had a fairly large number of chiplet related submissions. We're also working on the idea of a demo, a portion of the demo floor where we can demonstrate chiplet-based products. We have quite a few now, based on OCP specs, so that we can sort of organize a session on the demo floor. And then the other thing is we're still trying to poke around this idea of whether we can do something with the CHIPS Act. We've had a bunch of feelers out. Something's looking more. It's looking, at least we're kind of getting a lay of the land as to who's doing what in the CHIPS Act, but we don't have any tangible way to take our members and go there yet. So there's a promising lead developed this week. That's about the range of our activities. We also had a chiplets conference called Hip Chips, sort of the second edition in 2023 that happened. So all in all, sort of continued good growth in the ecosystem, continued good activity in our work streams, and a lot of active participation expected at the global summit. That's it. Thanks, John.
All right. Thank you, Bappy. I don't see Alan on the call, so we probably don't have a HPC update unless anybody on the call has an update for us. All right. I did get a note from Damien that he had a conflict for the OCP NIC subproject. Does anybody have any update outside of what Damien would have presented? All right. I also don't see. Go ahead. Oh, thought someone was saying something. Also don't see Song or Ahmed there. Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, this is Steve Glazer from NVIDIA, wearing my PCI SIG protocol work group hat. There was a request for a class ID or programming interface definition that did get approved. So if it's not published yet, because we don't publish it all the time, but there was a request to identify the programming interface. The goal basically is with programming interfaces, you can write drivers that are generic that are not tied to vendor ID, device ID. So
it's a new ID that was approved, or a new.
If you look in a device capability structure, there's a field called class code, and one of the subfields of that is programming interface. So when you're loading a device driver in PCI, you first look to see if there's a driver identified by vendor ID, device ID that's the most precise, I want that driver kind of thing. And if there's not one of those, then you go looking for a generic driver and that's based off class code. And so the OCP NIC, I think it was the OCP NIC, it wasn't a NIC spec, asked for a programming interface ID, and that was assigned as requested.
Thank you.
Okay.
And
Steve,
the appropriate document gets published on a kind of quarterly schedule, so it's not visible to anybody yet, but it's there, and if you need the number, we have it, but it was as requested.
Okay, and that was tied into the OAI OEM?
To the NIC, for the NIC.
Oh, that's right, the NIC. Okay.
Yeah, basically it lets device drivers locate or lets a generic drive interface that's built by anybody use a common device driver more easily.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. That's good. Okay. I don't see a Song or Ahmed on either on the OAI OEM. Do you have any updates on the OAI OEM subproject? Same thing from Naj. I can't remember if I got a email from him saying whether he could make it or not. Do we have an update on CMS?
It's just there's lots of activity going on today. The techs, everybody's there in person as far as they can be there. They're going to work through topics for the global summit and talking about high-level system requirements and use cases and advantages that composable memory system can bring. So it was just an opportunity for people to be there in person. Manoj was nice enough to organize the more than a half a day summit on that topic.
Okay. Good. Next up, we have CMS. I don't see a Manoj online either. Like I say, we had definitely a couple of conflicts today, so we knew we were going to have a light. Does anybody have any updates on CMS?
The short update I gave was for CMS.
The what was?
For composable memory system, the little update I just gave, the
Oh,
CMS
right.
team
Yes. Okay.
is
Yeah. That we have that's one of the conflicts. So yeah, we don't expect a lot of CMS crowd here. Brian's already given an update on DCSCM. So thank you for that, Brian. External PCI connectivity. Mohammed, I don't see online either.
the team is working on a somewhat of a high level requirements document from the OCP side. At some point, that document should be shared with PCI SIG because some of the implementations will be done eventually specified by PCI SIG. So the output of this team is not a specification. It is somewhat of a high level request requirement kind of things for systems to work well. A number of people have been working hard on it, but at some point it needs to be presented to PCI SIG.
Right.
It
Yeah. As
is
we form
talking
this group.
about, yeah, it's talking about copper and optical interconnects.
Right. Yeah, I know when we formed this group, we were very clear that we didn't want to create a competing spec. So this is about collecting requirements and helping to drive a standards body to incorporate those instead of trying to come up with a competing standard. Okay,
Right. And
good.
Mohammed El Batal is leading that, and they meet on Mondays. If anybody's interested in, find it on the calendar and join in.
Yes. Okay. Tom did send a note that he couldn't be here, but we do have a SIOV R2 update that Steve Glasher was going to give a update on. Steve,
Sure. All right.
do you have
Basically,
something to share?
yeah, if I can figure this out, I'm not used to GoToMeeting. Where'd it go? Oh, share screen. There we go. Is that coming through?
It's trying.
I see it. I think.
Yeah, it brought up a black box. There it is. Yeah,
Okay,
you definitely need to zoom in.
Okay. All right. Oh, where'd it go? Where's the one I want? Oh, Page width. There we go. Come on. Okay. All right. So this table is probably the most interesting part. We're looking at a schedule, trying to align. Actually, let me look at it. So we're looking at the various intercepts and trying to figure out what made sense, because clearly if the SIOVR2 stuff doesn't align with major things going on in the industry, it's either not going to happen or going to happen on a delayed schedule that doesn't solve anybody's problem. So we have a external set of influences that we have to hit if we want to make this thing viable in the industry. So the first four are the things that we're working on internally in the group. We've pretty much identified the context identification stuff. That's on, we're voting on that now. ADI and VDEV we're working on. Work submission is the next thing. How do you submit work to a shareable function? Do we even need to standardize it? And then confidential compute, we believe that confidential compute is mandatory, and we have to make sure that whatever we do doesn't make the situation worse. It's already complicated enough. So we're looking for a 0.5 kind of draft at the end of the calendar year. And at that point, we would have an identification of the ECNs or ECRs. ECR is a request, ECN is an approved thing in PCI SIG nomenclature. So we would have a list of identified ECRs that we plan on submitting. We would then in March, we would have a .7, and at the same time, we would submit the drafts to the PCI SIG. They could show up earlier if they're ready, but that would be kind of the latest that we think would work to still meet the schedule we're talking about. And then a draft of a .8 for us. Draft ECNs to the PCI SIG. That's basically when the PCI SIG publishes the ECNs to their membership for member review. There's like a 90-day member review thing that's part of their bylaws. So we're kind of targeting that, basically saying that we think that the PCI SIG can turn this around between March and September. And then 90 days later, we get the approval or the ECN approval, member review feedback, and we think that kind of drives in to somewhere between our 0.9 and 1.0 specs, so that the stuff is out for member review. When people are looking at R.9, they can also look at the PCI SIG member review ECNs and see how they align. We also would have the opportunity to publish those ECNs independently as attachments to our spec, since they would be coming from this group. PCI SIG has an IP policy that says whoever submits IP can still do whatever they want to with that IP. So if the IP is coming from SIOVR2, then SIOVR2 has the freedom to publish it independently. And that's it.
Steve, the topic came to us, to the server project, by Intel and Microsoft. Since this has been a closed group, which companies are engaged, and how many active and participants are there?
There's fairly wide participation: NVIDIA, Red Hat, AMD, ARM, Ampere. I forget who else. Microsoft, clearly. Microsoft's actually participating pretty well. So is Red Hat. So I'm encouraged that we're getting a fair amount of software interaction, namely that, because a lot of the PCI SIG stuff tends to be light on the software content. The software folk just don't seem to participate. That's not the case here. So some people have argued that this work is in the wrong forum, that it should have been done inside the PCI SIG or something. That's water under the bridge, doesn't matter. The thing that I think is encouraging is that we're getting the right level of participation from the right players.
Okay, so basically bottom line is that people have found use cases, and the team expects good broad acceptance and perhaps productization around it, right?
Yes. The other thing that I think is going on is that we're looking at perhaps a phased approach. There's some scaling targets that would require more extensive work or change to the ecosystem. We think that change is going to happen, but it's going to take a while for the ecosystem to actually work it through. The good news is that the upper limits of those goals in terms of how many virtual machines and so forth are also in the future. So there's some staged approaches where, oh, adopt this already existing technology and it'll get you partway there, and that'll be good enough for a while. So I think there's a good story here.
Very good. Thank you.
So is this all you had is the schedule? Do you have any other like more text describing what you're doing or a description of which companies are being involved to get that
I don't have a list of
document?
companies right now. Let me, I think I listed, let's see, it's ARM, Ampere, NVIDIA, AMD, Intel. There's a couple other companies that I'm drawing a blank on that are more niche startup kind of things.
Okay.
Red Hat and Microsoft are also involved. Those
Yeah.
are the main
Yes.
heavy.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, as Samik said, since it's a closed group, we don't get a lot of visibility into it. If you could send me the deck, your update you're presenting, so I can get it posted for those who can't make the call, since it's light attendance. I want to get it posted so we have a good status update on the wiki.
Okay, this is a working document from this that I'm not sure what level of visibility Tom wants, so I'll send it to you, but I'd like you to, we need to close the loop and make sure that we're getting the right vintage.
Yeah, actually, if you would get with Tom and make sure you're sending something that can be posted before you send it.
Okay. And we are meeting twice a week now.
Okay.
So,
Steve,
things were
again, at the
going kind of slow
beginning,
for a while.
I think you mentioned it, but at the beginning, it was presented as a lot of software related frameworks. Does the team see that it requires some hardware modifications or any kind of spec updates to either PCIe or CXL?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. For an example, one of the proposals on the table is an enhancement to flattening portal bridges. Flattening portal bridges is a thing that has been there for a long time. It's primarily used in, well, its primary use case today is in Thunderbolt support, but it was originally envisioned for other uses. And we have a proposal on the table to enhance that so that we can essentially make use of the larger number of segments that PCI Express flip mode has, and to get more devices. Because some people are asking for machines that can support 1 million virtual machines. And getting there was difficult in the R1 kind of structure. The R1 kind of structure is also problematic for non-Intel platforms. Intel has an architecture that works just fine for R1. But other people are saying, we can't do that, for very good technical reasons.
All right. Thank you, Steve.
Okay, thank you.
Lest we had any update, we do want to keep track of the inter-project communication with the hardware management module, DCSCM, since it's so tied to MHS. Update on that is that they do have the DCSCM 2.1 final draft review and edit that they're sending to the IC in June, which, did that already happen, Rob?
No, and that one should be for the July 6th meeting, which is Thursday next week.
Okay. Okay.
Brian, your team was concerned about version numbering scheme that PCSCM was using. Have you guys worked it out?
No, I think we were waiting for OCP to provide feedback since we're both doing it differently.
That's accurate. We do need to, that is on a list. That is a discussion we're having internal. So we do need to just pick a common way of doing it. So
Yeah, I
yep,
think that's our request is we don't necessarily care or have an opinion one way or the other. We just want to be common.
sure. Yep, agreed. Let me make sure that gets back to the top of the conversation internally. We'll get you some feedback on that shortly.
Thanks, Rob.
Sure.
Please don't follow the DMTF model. That one is different than everybody else in the known universe and adds confusion. In their world, 6.2a is a draft on the way towards 6.2 final. And most people think of 6.2a as an amendment to 6.2, a newer version of 6.2.
Yeah, I can see how that causes confusion. I think one way that was proposed was PCI SIG, but I think there's alternate proposals that I've heard.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thanks for
just
forwarding.
right. The high level things, gross changes, backward compatibility, and then min drops as the people are working towards final spec drop. Those are the major aspects that we need to cover. Any numbering system that can support that, that would be great.
Okay. John, I don't want to jump in your agenda here. You're still on mute. Do we have someone from, we have a contribution in process right now from Microsoft for MXFP. Is there someone on the call to represent that contribution? Okay.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was asking for, Rob, on mute. It said we had an email discussion, but I didn't know whether it was finalized. So
Yeah, I
sound like
got
we have
feedback.
anybody on.
I was on crazy flights yesterday. So yeah, we did get confirmation that they were going to join the meeting. So I expected them to be on. So I'll follow up with them directly and get you connected to the right representative because it does sound like they're ready to present. But
Okay, good. Yeah, they may have given up since we didn't get the call started properly.
yeah.
Okay.
Rob, at a high level, what we're trying to do at Server Project is encourage multi-company collaboration so that once the base specification is worked through and approved, it by itself, because it had many companies involved, create adoption and success. When contributions come from sole company, base specification is good, but perhaps not sufficient in that regard to guarantee some sort of a adoption and success. So if a sole company is making contributions, it will be good for them to have a plan for us, design specs and products following as well. So please encourage whoever is coming up with sole contributions to kind of outline what happens next.
Yeah, that's a great point. I completely agree. That's our expectation. So this team has been working closely with Bijan, our CTO, and so he's been guiding them on the contribution process and the value of the spec exactly how you outlined it, right? That a single contributor on a standalone spec without a roadmap of some other pieces that are going to be part of this specification doesn't have as much value as a collaborative work and a roadmap that actually develops into something larger. And I'm under the impression that they do. they have not been operating under a CLA just yet. So I think we have that now, and so this is kind of the first step for them in a bigger process.
Right. It
Very
also
good.
seems like there would be significant overlap or conflict with the OFP8 that's already been out there that is multi-company. So we definitely want to get a good understanding of how these two specs interact and overlap, and if there's any
Absolutely,
collaboration between them.
that should be definitely part of the review process. And our expectation is that they're coordinated, that their version has some slight differences. So it may turn the face of or into a design specification based on OFP8. I'm not certain. I haven't seen the work yet from them, so it's hard for me to claim exactly what it is. But their desire is to get in front of an audience.
Okay. Good.
Uh, Competing or different specification just by the fact that they're different doesn't necessarily stop from things being useful. What stops from things being useful is somebody just throws something off the wall, just the base spec, and does not follow through with the productization. So that's the piece that we're trying to encourage.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Yeah, that's all we had on the agenda today. We did kind of skip the announcements. So the registration for OSP Global Summit is open. The submission window for the engineering workshops window has closed, and we're starting a review cycle there. We got a lot of submissions, so we definitely got expanded time on the server for all the server projects, but we're still not going to be able to accept all the submissions. Rob, you want to add a little more color to that?
No, I mean, I think you covered it. So, we're just in that process. I guess I could add some context for, contributions and things happening for Summit is that across the board, all projects, we've had a record turnout and record submission, which is fantastic. The only downside is having to say no because our conference is only of 2 to 3 days long, and there's only so much time in a day. So, um, please be aware that that's happening across the board. So
As we've done in the past, uh, since many abstracts come in, and although they're independently thought through, they overlap in topic. The Server Project at Least program committee has decided to encourage collaborators to work together. Maybe multiple abstracts are similar. We ask them to, as they flesh out the details, they maybe collaborate and come up with one presentation.
yeah, I think that's a great solution for, first, I think it increases the quality of, contributions in the form of presentation, whatever it may be. The more would definitely favor collaborative projects and submissions over, sole ones. The other thing that all the teams are looking at, even the OCP events team and organizers of, different topics or subjects that have a significant overlap that maybe got submitted under separate tracks or just aren't aware of each other's work. We're definitely encouraging our project leads and the teams working on those reviews to, connect those teams together, as you said, CMAC, that are working on very similar work or where there's lots of overlap.
Yeah, we'll definitely need to rely on the foundation staff to help us out there because we're only reviewing what we see come into our group, so we don't have visibility to what came into other projects.
Yep. No, that's certainly top of mind in our discussions as we've been trying to digest all these requests to present.
Okay, I think that's all we had on the schedule today. I do apologize for the late start and the confusion that all caused, but luckily we didn't have a real tight agenda day, so it managed to work through it and still get it under time. Does anybody have anything else they'd like to discuss in the last few minutes of the call before we close it?
Thank you. It worked out well.
Yes. Thanks everyone, and we'll talk next month and see you at the summit in a couple months. It's coming up quick.
Sure is. Thanks, John. Thanks, everyone.
All right, bye.